Okay, guys, what's going on? SmartHelping.com here at 7:43 p.m. on a Sunday night. I've been in the ringer here trying to figure out how to make a lending as a service platform financial model for someone or a group that wants to basically have a cashless lending platform. Now, this would work where you're not actually a bank, you would be just a platform facilitating loans between people or peoples and businesses. This is all assuming it's unsecured loans, and the the business would be you basically take a percentage of the gross revenues that are created on a platform, and that's a percentage of interest as well as a percentage of the closing fees, um, late fees, and then you also in this model I built actually functionality so the platform can actually share some portion of the cost of defaults, or basically if a default happens, the lender covers some portion. So that's built into this model. You could put 0% if it doesn't apply to you. So let's just get into this thing. It's probably, I mean, it's up there with the um, top couple models. I've done, well over 50 industry specific ones, and this is definitely at the top. It's going to be a high level model for sure. So we're going to start with the control tab. Uh, so the control tab, you enter your start date, and this is just the first day of the year that you plan on starting. So even if you start in April or May, you just want to put the first date of that year. So you're starting in May of 2019, you just put 1/1/2019. Then we have these variables here for key sensitivities. I've picked basically three variables that you can adjust, and you could pick the loan settle amount, the count of loans settled, and the average annual interest rate per risk category. And based on you choosing low, base, or high, it's going to adjust for example, loan settle amounts up or down 25%. And you could change these. You could change this to whatever, 50, 40, and it'll change uh, as you do that. This is key for scenario analysis because you'll go through and set the base values for all these in the various tabs that apply. And then based on you adjusting this one time, it can adjust those figures up and down. So that's some pretty nice functionality. We also have how you're going to generate revenue as a platform. So here I've just put in a percentage. This could be whatever you think you want to do, but um, basically the percentage of the gross interest that you take, the percentage of the closing fees you take, percentage defaults that you're going to pay, and then the closing fee percentage on all loans, which is a flat rate here. Um, then we've got exit assumptions, so you can actually choose, if you want to try to sell the platform at a given time, you just enter that in. It'll tell you how many years it is. You could pick the valuation method. Um, EBITDA or percentage of revenue multiple, put in the multiple, and it gives you an exit value based on that, which is looking up from the monthly P&L tab. And then you can see the annualized figure there for each one. And there's the exit valuation. So note that does not take into account the payback of the debt, which we'll see more on the executive summary. And you could see, oh, we paused. Oh, here we go. You can see the exit value just is 2 times if we're choosing EBITDA, annualized amounts 1.2. Now normally this is probably going to be on a revenue basis, um, and probably not. I don't know what the multiples are for lending platforms right now. Um, but you can enter that and it'll give you your exit value. You also got to fill in here capital requirement. This pulls from the cash flow of the business over time. It basically is taking the minimum cash balance you have given all the assumptions, and that's how much you have to come up with, including any financing, or the financing is included. So it really means you need about, well, if we put a zero here, is you go up to 6.6. If we say you finance 2 million, you're also going to pay some interest there. Then you'll need 5 to come up with 5. So you can see how that kind of changes. And then before I get into all these loans, one of the nice, the reason why people like this cashless kind of business is because number one, you're not really taking a lot of risk as a platform. You're just facilitating. Um, Now you are paying some percentage of defaults here, but it's not, it doesn't have to be in proportion to the amount of interest you're getting. It could be zero, based on however all your assumptions you plan it out. And that's really the pull of this, and it's really becoming popular to do because people can get quick loans, and you can upload all the due diligence documents online and verify everything pretty quickly. So that's why it's becoming an alternative to banks, especially as the interest rates um, are competitive with banks, or you might not even be able to go to a bank, and so you got to go through this kind of a platform. Okay, so then we've got loan counts here. So we've got, this is where you're going to define what you're going to call each of your risk categories. There's up to 7 here. You can put what their average annual interest rate is here, adjust it to whatever you want, and then you just start putting in the monthly loan count. So here it's saying, 5. So saying for 2019 for AAA, the platform plans on settling 5 AAA loans per month. So a total of 60 for the year. And then you could apply that logic all the way across for each year. You can see by the end, we're planning to do 50 AAA loans per month. And you can adjust these to kind of strategize how you want to build the platform, or what you think you'll be able to do, or what your goals are. Likely, you're probably going to want to try to shift from lower grade loans to better ones over time, but you could plan that out however you see fit. And then this is just how these adjust. So you can see here, see 5, 10, 15. If we go and change the counts assumption, so count of loans, if we put this up to high, it's going to rate everything by 25%. So you can see here now, look, 6, 13, 19 instead of 5, 10, 15. So that works just fine. So then we have loan amounts. So this is just the amount of the average loan amount that you think will be for each loan. And obviously, this kind of lends itself to having higher loans with lower counts, but you could have just the opposite. You could have, higher volumes of loans with lower average loan amounts. And you can see you could change that rate by the risk rating, or the annual interest rate, or the annual risk category, and the interest rates are populated based on what you put in here. So you're only going to want to edit light yellow only. Okay, so then we have loan amounts here. So this is if C637, 637. Let's update that. If we put this annual loan amounts down to, let's put it up higher actually. So it should be higher than 637, and there it is, 797. Or we could go low and 478. And that's a nice way to just, one click of a button and you adjust all the assumptions from what the base is. Then we've got defaults. So this is just, what you think the default rate is for each risk category. That'll be important in determining cash flows in the end, if you're going to cover any default amounts or some portion of that. Then we've got the loan length. So this you can enter up to 4 categories here. So on your platform, you can have 3, 6, 9, and 12-month loans. You could have this be 12, 36, 48, 60-month loans. You could have any number here, and like if I put 5 in, it automatically um, has the MO, the abbreviation there for the months, but you could just put in the number and it recognizes it. And then you could just put the percentage of each loan from the risk grade that you think will be in each term. So this is saying we think, for all of the AAA loans that settle, uh, they're going to be evenly split between 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. Now, realistically, it's probably going to be like 50, 35, and then whatever. What do we got left? 85. Closer to that is probably, more realistic. Maybe even like 75, 25. Maybe none of here. Um, and based on these assumptions, you can see we've done in a monthly. I've got where you can see like the AAA performance, the AA by each, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and so that's pretty granular. But I have this so you can easily minimize it and just see the total gross monthly interest across all loan terms and risk grades. And so you can see these are zeros. We've changed it so that we only have 12 and 9 months on that first one for AAA. And so everything updated, which is good to see. Um, running costs here, so you can pick the different descriptions for different monthly running costs you plan on the platform having. The date at which they start, because you might be scaling into some of these costs, and then what the monthly amount is by year again here. We also got startup costs, which is just things you plan on spending before you actually start operations. And then CapEx is like improvements, just any one-time expenditures that you plan on having over the course of the model. And then we have the executive summary. And so this is aggregating all of the cash flows. You can see it stops at year 2025 because we put that on the control, but let's just put it back out to the full 10 years. So there we got numbers out to 2028. So this is showing you your revenue after default. So what this number is actually looking at is the total gross revenue on the platform times the percentage that the platform gets less any amount of defaults that the platform covers. So you can see this is 661,000 for year one. If we change this default to 0, it should go higher. And yeah, you can see it goes from 661 to 790, 194,000. So just kind of showing you that these everything kind of ties and works. Then we've got just total operating expenses, and then EBITDA, percentage margin. Then we've got your cash flow items outside of operations, the capex, debt service, if any, your exit valuation, loan funds, loan payback, startup costs, and then your cash flow before taxes. And then we've got also discounted cash flow here on that. And then we've got a little return box up here. You can see your internal rate of return annualized, over the term of however long you're going for. The total investment needed, 4.6 million. Which note this is going to be higher than this is basically going to be the sum of this. You can see it's 4.692, 4.692. But that's if you're basically running you have your startup cost, and if you run at a deficit, then your initial investment needed is going to have to be more than your initial startup costs, which is probably likely. So we get that number there. You see financed amount, actual capital required. So this is saying you need 2,692,000. And okay, so am I back here? Yep. Okay, so actually this amount, this total investment needed, let's go back and put a finance amount in here, because this was logic from my other recycling model, and it's adjusted because this model kind of works a little differently. So your total investment needed is your capital requirement. The amount financed is included in, before this happens, and it's taken into account, interest and everything else. So we actually don't need this figure, and we can use the cash here. So this is actually total cash, total equity needed. So that's your capital requirement, 6 million. So you're going to get 250,000 from the bank. You're going to need 6 million to cover all your costs, based on the assumptions, and that's that. And then you return to work off of that. Now let's go to the chart. So you can see here we've got, total loan count settled per risk rating. Key financials, this is revenue, costs, and profit chart. We've got monthly cash flow versus accumulated cash. It's a little bit easier to see on the annual here. You can see what's happening each year and how your cash is accumulating, and then the exit is that. Here's the loan settle amount by risk rating. So the total amount that the platform is doing each year. See, this is up to 1.2 billion. Interestingly enough, at 1.2 billion volume a year, you're actually only, as a platform, making somewhere around, well, here's your gross profit, which is interest. So you're doing about 4.5 million in interest, and then about 5 million in closing fees, closing cost fees. So, I mean, you're looking at a billion. Out of a billion, you're going to make about 10 million. Given obviously these assumptions, which I mean, the assumptions are reasonable on the percentages. It just depends on, you can set up specific to what you plan on doing, but that's interesting to see there. Then we got platform share of defaults. So this is how much you're actually paying on defaults, which would be, this number factors into this platform interest amount, I think. Let me double check. Platform interest earned by risk rating. So this one, risk rating, let's go to monthly. This figure here. Oh, this little amount. Here, interest. Yes, so that's doing your total gross interest. Okay, so no, that's not including defaults. Perfect. Good to know. So this figure here in this chart is not including defaults, so you can see how much it actually is coming out in defaults. About 2 million. And that's why you've got this at, let's say, 5.5, 4.5, that's 10 million less your defaults of 2.3. That should give you somewhere around your profit. At 7.6. Let's see, does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, about 10 minus 2.5. That's going to leave you at 7.5. So somewhere around there, but that makes sense. What else do we got? Monthly P&L. This is the same thing as the annual. Just basically you see how all the figures aggregate. And we've got our financing, which based on the finance assumptions, this populates, and then this flows right into the annual and monthly or the monthly P&Ls, and the annual aggregates everything. Okay, so I think we've covered all of the logical scenarios. We got an index here, and then this video will help you. You probably should follow along with each step so you can see how to build it up, and that should do it for you guys. Hopefully I'll have another model in a couple weeks, but this is definitely, lending as a service, peer-to-peer lending platform, really cool stuff here. So hopefully this will help. And so a couple things at the end here I wanted to say. You can get this model. There'll be a link in the description box below, smarthelping.com. This model is going to at least start at $125 per, one-time fee if you want it. And I'll just have it set up so it'll automatically download. be available to download if you purchase. I also just manually email them out for every purchase. Um, and then this also relates, I have another model that is for if you're actually going to be an investor on a P2P lending platform. I've built that out, so you can find that at smarthelping.com as well under the financial models. Just look for like P2P and you'll see it in there somewhere. And that's a lower level model at $45, but it's related to this. Okay, have a great one.